I worked on my Norwegian before I came. And as I said yesterday, if you came to the lecture today, I got to have a few phrases down. I have god dag. Jeg forstår ikke norsk. Jeg forstår norsk ikke så mye. And that's about it. I tried, but about 4 or 5 days into my Norwegian lessons on my audio CDs, I realized it just wasn't going to happen. So I learned the important phrases, and I think unnskyld is pardon me. So pardon me for that. The other thing too that with this topic especially, a lot of what I'm going to share with you is geared for an American context because of the fact that most of my research has been done in an American context. That being said, I have attempted to find as many resources as I could on Norwegian teens and social technology, as long as those resources were in English. There were a few, so I do have some statistics for you today on what teens in Norway are doing in terms of cell phone use and text messaging and that kind of thing, and that hopefully will be enlightening to you. The reason that is important for you to realize with that American context is you're going to be doing 2 levels of translation today. One is you have to listen to me speak in English, and I apologize for that. The second level of translation is that a lot of what I may say, you can just go, nah, that's not our context. That's not Norway. And I can't do that work. I don't know Norway, but you do. I practice something in the States called practical theology, and the nature of practical theology is such that it's always very contextual. And what that means, in our case, obviously, is we have the American-Norwegian context going on. But we always have contextual theology that needs to be done in each of our situations. You come from a variety of places in Norway, and a variety of different kinds of churches, even though you're all part of the Church of Norway. And so what I invite you to do a little bit of today is to be doing a process of practical theology on your own, asking the questions, what rings true for our youth? What do our responses need to be in our particular location? And that'll be important. Before we begin, I would love to hear a little bit about what you want to get out of this time, what kind of piqued your interest, raised your interest in coming to this particular seminar. There are a lot of seminars that you could have gone to. And so I would love to hear some of the questions that you come with, or the thoughts that you come with that you find important. And I also see that you've already picked up an American tradition, which is to sit in the back of the classroom. Maybe we learned that from you. I'm not sure, but so I'm going to start moving my way up here. I'm going to have to pick somebody if you don't volunteer too. So, yes, ma'am.
I work in a youth mission organization, and I think, well, at least what we recognize when we gather youth from different countries is that, well, youth are more global than grown-ups, and I don't know if the grown-ups really recognize this world of youths. So that's my motivation to learn more.
Mm-hmm. And social technology has definitely progressed that even in the last 5 or 6 years. Teenagers instantaneously know what's popular in France because it's on YouTube, you know. So, yes, sir.
Maybe to see how to use the social media instead of trying to exclude them from the ministry, because someone has tried to put your cell phones away, but that's not really the point. So try to include it in the service or in the ministry.
Yeah. And we'll definitely touch on that careful balance, because there's a careful balance there of trying to exclude, which can be problematic, and also sometimes embrace can be problematic. And we will talk a little bit about a third way, beyond exclusion of technology or embrace of technology. I think there's a third way we can talk about it. So good, we'll hit on that. Part of the reason I'm asking you this is the last time I gave this presentation before I was in Norway, it was part of a 12-hour seminar. And so I have 12 hours of material running around in my head. I'm pretty sure that you don't want to stay for 12 hours. So kind of your responses right now will allow me to kind of give an idea of where we need to go in the next time together. So what you'll experience will be hopefully a little different than what the last group did even. And then I want to give you time to talk with each other too, because I think it's important. Other thoughts, other questions that you came with or ideas? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to hear about more like the dangers about the social medias, what they do to kids, and there are things out there that's absolutely not healthy for kids and youth,
Okay.
and how to kind of interact in that and try to show them the healthy way to use
Okay.
web.
Do you find a lot, or is there a lot of fear in Norway around the use of technology and the way kids are doing it? I know in the U.S. there's a lot of fear. Is there, no?
Not for youth, at least.
How about for parents? Yeah, kids are the same everywhere that way. They don't care what, like, I'm going to use this, whatever. But parents, I know in the U.S. are just, my kid's going to become a cyborg. He's in his room all day, all by himself on the computer, and yeah.
Some internet companies now offer these internet connections where you have restrictions. So that means that they can control whether the kids or youth go into these sites where you don't want them to be, which might be what you are into.
Yeah,
Afraidness.
that's interesting. So kind of restrictions. Yes, sir.
Well, last year, my church has been using Facebook and Twitter to get in touch with the people that we normally don't get to reach. So we got some. So far, we've gotten some very positive publicity from it, but it hasn't increased our church attendance. Not yet.
Interesting. Interesting. I don't know if you saw in the news this week. There's a position open at the Royal Palace for a social media expert. If you're one, apparently the Crown Prince and Princess are looking for an expert. Applications close tomorrow, is my understanding. So, but both of them, Twitter and Facebook, and apparently the whole palace is interested in moving things forward. Of course, the Prime Minister last year credited the win in 2009 to the use of Facebook and Twitter in his campaign. So, I mean, there's a movement afoot among corporations in Norway, among government. It sounds like among churches as well. They try to appropriate some of these things. So, yeah.
I'm also wondering about the dangers for youth workers by the fact that we're always available to by the social media. I think there might be a risk there for something that not so well.
Okay. Yeah, and that is a danger. How do you become a person as opposed to a youth minister 24 hours a day and live a real life? I got two of them back here. Yeah. Whoever wants to speak first. Yeah.
Don't skip the brain stuff.
Oh yeah, don't skip the brain stuff. Okay. We'll throw that in.
The singularity of transhumanism.
Okay. We're now 2 hours. What can we add to that?
My experience when I started as a youth pastor, that the elderly youth had their own discussion of how they as leaders should appear on Facebook. They had its own discussion when I came and made their own rules actually, because they all about that it's still private but it's public, and all about which kind of pictures you present with, and so they actually done that by themselves.
The youth have done that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it kind of pertains a little bit to the document that I gave you already. We're going to talk about that document in a few minutes, but yeah.
And in schools in Norway, they have classes in teaching children how to have knowledge about using the internet, because their parents probably don't know too much about the applications, and they divide between private and public, and that's important to know. That's the important public.
And one thing to note too, the comments on the brain stuff and that comment you just made actually tie together, because of what's happening in the brain when we use social media. Education alone is not going to help us sometimes with kids, because they may know very well that they shouldn't do this or that on the net, and yet because of some of the brain things going on, they're going to ignore some of the things they know for some of the more hormonally driven and neurologically driven things. Let's go ahead and we'll move into some of this. A couple of disclaimers. One, if at some point I begin slurring my English words, because even Americans think I don't talk clearly, feel free to just raise your hand or wave and say, I have no idea what you just said, and I will gladly stop. So let's go ahead and move ahead. Everything I want to do today is to be in the context of practical theology. Did anyone go to Katie Douglas's seminar in the last session? Nobody. Okay. Well, good, because I'll introduce this again. There's a fourfold pattern in practical theology that is helpful. 4 movements or 4 moments even of practical theology. The first bit is the descriptive moment of asking what is happening. What is happening with teenagers and technology? And I want to share with you a while today about what's happening with teens and technology. What are they doing? How is it changing both our society and the way that teens are growing up? How is it changing the way they relate to faith and so on? The second step of practical theology that we often skip in youth ministry is to ask the deeper question of why is this happening? We often move immediately from, well, kids are using their cell phones in my youth group. I'm talking and we're doing Bible study and using my cell phone. We skip the second question of going from why. We go right to the end and go, well, what am I going to do about it? And so we immediately try to take away their phones or do whatever. But it's important maybe to understand why. Why are teens so interested in social media? And I'll explain that term social media in just a moment. The third step is the normative question or the theological moment. And that's the question of, okay, we know what they're doing and we know why they're doing it. But how do we as a Christian community respond out of the resources of our own tradition, out of our faith, out of a theological response? The world can respond in a variety of ways to social media. We know the schools have put classes in place to teach kids about social media. But what do we as the church do that is uniquely Christian? What can we pull from our theological resources that help us address it in a very faithful way? And the last bit then is the pragmatic. So in light of all of that other stuff, what are we going to do? How do we address this? So let's move into the descriptive description kind of moment here for a moment. That's a lot of moments. Social media, what is it? And basically the best definition of social media I've seen is that it's anything that allows us to create, to explore, to play, to work together. As long as we add together in, it becomes social media. And there's this huge shift that happened on the internet in around 2004 where we went from static web pages with information to people interacting with one another through and with that information. It's called Web 2.0 or the social media kind of revolution. And it's around that time that you see Facebook and MySpace and all of these other kinds of organizations popping up. I understand NetBee is big. Is it big with many of your teens? And Facebook's the biggest? Still? Okay. Yeah. So there are a variety of different kinds of social media. You have social network sites like Facebook or NetBee where kids have profiles and they connect with one another. But you also have sites like Reddit or Dig where they're news sites and people can share news in a social way and they comment on it and the news goes up or down the charts based on how many people are interested in talking about it. These are all different forms of social media. So anything that, again, allows kids to create, play, to explore, to express, to connect together. Which means that a lot of the video games that teenagers play actually can be counted as social media. Because if you actually delve into what a lot of teens are doing with those video games, they're relating to one another in the midst of it. Anybody have boys that play World of Warcraft in their groups? Okay. World of Warcraft is actually a very social game. And what we often don't realize is that is the way that guys socialize. So girls, for example, and this tends to be universal around the world. Girls are good with going to have tea together and just, drinking tea and talking about what's going on in life. Now, I'm not thinking that you and I would set up a time to go have tea together, right? No, we're gonna get together. We're gonna kick the football around. We're gonna be throwing the baseball back and forth. We're gonna be biking through the mountains. And in the midst of doing that, we'll be talking together and we kind of share life that way. Guys tend to need a third thing to kind of come between them that allows them to be relational. Because guys are like, no. But you get guys with a third thing, a tertium quid, if you want to use